Mr. Hardin, tell me your job specifically at Matel from the years of 2004 to 2008.
Yeah, I was a product development engineer there. I was basically in charge of making sure the product was designed to meet the designer's specifications for the price that marketing gave us, and it was all done on time to meet the requirements of the buyers.
Can you expand a little bit more on the quality control and what broke down during this fiasco?
Well, in the case of the lead paint, basically how the process works is that each toy is tested for heavy particles by taking a completely painted toy and putting it in basically acid, and so the paint dissolves and the heavy particles drop to the bottom, and they can count and make sure it's within the standards. I'm not sure of the exact colors in this case, but I'm just going to use blue and yellow to illustrate what happened. For the toys that were recalled, the process was done and they found heavy particles, but the next step in that process is to ascertain which paint actually contained the heavy particles. When I say heavy particles, I mean lead, basically. And so they go through and test individually each paint by going through the same process. And what happened was they tested, let's say, the blue paint first and found heavy particles and assumed that that was the only heavy particle because it was rare that any lead was found. And so they swapped out the blue paint and moved forward with production without continuing further testing, when in fact there was also lead in the yellow paint. And so many products were shipped with lead in the yellow paint.
Finally, Mr. Hardin, can you tell me, is this a result of the manufacturers within China making substandard product to shave costs, or is the burden more on Matel not screening these products carefully enough, and more a result of lack of corporate oversight?
That's a good question. Well, I think ultimately it was probably a little bit of both. It's hard to say. I do know that this was a vendor that we were using, and they're under tight pressures, and they signed contracts so that Mattel's going to pay them a certain amount of dollars per toy, and any savings that they can get once they actually start production is savings that they get to put in their pocket. Now, lead paint is cheaper because it's not allowed to be used and it can be bought on the black market, and it dries faster, so they can actually increase their production time. And so, you may argue that because they were under such intense pressures and cost pressure from corporate America or Mattel, that forced them to try to gain a profit, actually. And so, that might have been the case, but you also might argue that maybe they were getting enough profits already and that they were just trying to make an extra buck on top of it. Depends on the point of view. And the other set of recalls were in regards to magnets, and you could also argue that both ways. One being that the design that was provided from corporate America, Nelson Guindo, corporate Mattel, to the manufacturers, maybe the design was not sufficient enough to keep the magnets in place, and so no matter how well you follow the design and manufacturing setting, the magnets were going to come loose. Or you might argue that the design itself was not flawed, but rather the way that the design was completely implemented caused the magnets to come loose. So I think the way it really netted out was sort of both sides apologized, and it really hurt both sides. So there's no real clear answer there.
Thank you very much, Mark. Very informative.
My pleasure.